Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Heat Roundtable. I'm your host, Amir. You can find me at the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast. Joined today by Martel. You can find him at the Miami Heat Zone podcast. We also got Trent. You can find him at the Miami Heat Network. And for today's episode, we have two special guests joining the program. We have Bobby and Alex from Fins Talk Network. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Alex.
I'm doing good as well. Thank you, man. I appreciate us having us on, man.
Yeah, no
Before
problem.
we begin, just let the people know where they can find you on YouTube and whatnot.
Yeah,
So what your channel's about.
Yeah, we're on the FTSN Fins Talk Sports Network. We have all types of sports. Obviously, we started off as a Dolphins YouTube show or YouTube channel. Broke off, obviously, but went to Miami Heat, and then we've added hockey, fantasy football, professional wrestling. We cover it all, and we're just continuing to grow. Obviously, Alex and I, we co-host together East 10th Street Boys because Alex and I grew up together. We met. We've been best friends for 30 plus years now. So, and growing up, obviously I was we're both Dolphin Heat fans, but I was more with the football and he was with the basketball. And that's how we came up with East 10th Street Boys, which is the street we grew up on. And that's what we do. And that's where you guys found us, of course, talking Miami Heat.
That's awesome. That's cool, guys. Well, thanks again for joining the show. We'll start off with you, Bobby, but before we get into the questions, so Miami Heat have had a really quiet offseason so far, and the Heat are effectively running it back again for the sixth time. And when I say running it back, I mean with the core of Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. And the Heat again are going to be focusing on another blended build and timeline as we still have Jimmy Butler for now as our best player. But then, of course, we're going to now have to depend again on the development of young players like Jaime Jaquez, Jovic, and then our new rookie, KEL'EL WARE. So I guess I'll start off with you, Bobby. So my question for you is, what is your current outlook for this Miami Heat team? And, how do you feel about the state of the Miami Heat, moving forward next season?
So how I feel currently about the Miami Heat and, if they're going to run it back just with these added rookies, I don't feel as bad as most, I think. I can understand amongst the Heat fan base the desire to make a splash, get a whale. We all want that. We want to get that, because we've seen we've done the Heat have done awesome things with the rosters that they've had the past few years with Jimmy and company. You go to the finals twice and, right on the cusp of winning the one in the bubble. And then, of course, we got smacked down by Denver. They've always seemed like, they give us a chance. Obviously, we want that additional piece. For me, Alex knows this. I'm not about just trading for a guy to trade for him or sign a guy to sign him. Whether I don't care about name. My thing is, does this guy move the needle? So I'm okay with the taking your, trying to figure out the process and trying, just get the additional pieces. For me, with Miami in the regular season, they've never really been for a while now a strong team. It's for me, it's just get to the playoffs. And I do believe the Heat, even though that 2 years in a row they've been a play-in team, once they're in the playoffs, they're a different team. I really like the rookies that we've got, and I really like the KEL'EL WARE. I liked him before we drafted him. Kashad Johnson, who was an undrafted free agent, I liked him in the second round. Somebody I mentioned both those guys, Alex, but the Kashad Johnson, I remember in day 2 before me and Alex went on for the show, I was like, man, I love this guy Johnson, dude. He screams Miami Heat. I would love for them to take him. And of course they didn't. They took Pelle Larson, which is great, but then they got him in the undrafted, and look what he did in Summer League. I have trust in those guys. I trust Miami Heat's development system to get the best out of those guys very early on to make an impact this season. And the truth is, I don't know how many people admit it, the Heat are don't have really the assets or anything really besides probably Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson to make any kind of big move. They don't have the draft picks. They don't have the draft capital. So it's hard for the Heat to do any of that. So I've kind of come to terms and to peace with that, just to say, okay, we just have to run this back.
Now for you, Alex, go ahead.
Well, I tend to agree in regards to the perspective of I'm way more positive than the average Heat fan. because I do believe in the development of this core. And I always use the past champions, for example, Celtics and Nuggets, the past two champions, even the Bucks the year before, with the gap in between being the Warriors. Those are teams that grew organically. And unfortunately, due to the changes in the NBA with the aprons, this is not a money situation, is the repercussions that going into the second apron has, what it limits you, how you can build your team for the foreseeable future. Now, with that being said, I think people are not, oh, they are aware, but I don't think they truly understand the team that we have. I think people still have the image of us being manhandled by the Celtics when we were down a Terry, when we were down Jimmy, when Duncan wasn't healthy. So I understand health is always a talk, but this team has depth, and this team now, the ascension of Hawkins is another year in the league. Jovic, now drafting Ware and Pelle Larson. They might not, probably Ware is a rotational player from day one as a backup center starting. He's gonna play in platoon around with Bam at times, with Jovic, maybe with Love. You know how Spo does. Spo goes with his veterans and then he implements the rookies. But you have arguably everything that you need handled this offseason in regards to size and athleticism. The new NBA isn't 6'4", 6'5" anymore. Now you have multi-dimensional size where you have multiple guys playing multiple positions, but now it's mutations. Now it's 6'7", 6'8", and above. So yeah, we were the epitome of small ball, but it was funny because there was the quote from Spo. I forgot the exact words, but I retweeted it today where he goes, you have to continue to progress. If you stay the same, you don't grow, you don't advance. And that, from a head coach, from any coach perspective, you have to adapt to your time. You don't change the end result. You still want a championship organization, the most hated team in the NBA, the fittest team in the NBA, but your talent around you goes. And by me, what I've always thought about this offseason is a change in philosophy. There's gonna be a difference in offensive philosophy. People think that we need Jimmy to score 25 points every single. We don't need that. We have a team that can score where Jimmy does not need to be the primary scorer. Now, Jimmy's game is gonna evolve also. He's more perimeter oriented now. So that's all gonna be under control. So I think it's this season is a natural progression. Now it is gonna look like we're in limbo, but I do believe the organization and Jimmy will handle the contract situation in due time. But they're going to give themselves this season and basically let's shelf it and we'll talk about it next offseason. So we are really going to see now the growth even of Bam. Bam is at another stratosphere right now. And the exposure that he's getting in the Olympics and the exposure around the NBA, even though he already has that respect around the national media, people are seeing that now Bam taking his game to another level. So it's evolution and growth in every aspect. Hopefully, health on our side, but I don't think people realize that we have a pretty talented team in the East. Yeah, I mean, Boston is Boston, and their core is returning. Porzingis is gonna miss part of the season, so now you're working without him. New York is assembled. Philadelphia's assembled. Now, there are some teams that are going to take a step back, even if they're young and talented, like the Magic. They might take a simple step back. But I do believe, even with this core, we have a top five team in the East, in my opinion, once we start seeing the way they play. In the offseason and on paper, obviously, is going to be discounted. But I do believe there is an importance in continuity that people oversee. A lot of people think teams are just thrown together like the '08 Celtics and they're going to win. No, no, no. Continuity and growth is very important in this NBA. And now, I want to say 6 months ago, people were like, "Oh my God, the future's bleak." Now, all of a sudden, we have 4, 5, 6 young pieces that you can foreseeably see us leading us into the future with an aging Jimmy. So this year, it's important how we get off, how we start off the year. But I don't have this forsaken mentality of like, oh my God, we're going to be stuck in the East. We're in the bottom. We're not. We're going to be competitive, and we do have a team that is balanced, can score, can defend, and can do many things that other teams wish they could.
I will say too, very important. I don't think it's an accident that Pat Riley brought this up in his press conference at the end of the season was health. That's what's going to help a lot with this team next year, that they got to be committed. And I think Jimmy will be committed to playing more games this coming season because contract is on the line and whatnot. The health of this team, if we could get these guys healthy, at least 70% of the season, it will make the Heat, which Alex's dream, of course, is the more than 5-1, the seed there. They could achieve that with the talent that they have on this team, if, of course, health falls into line.
So where do you stand with Jimmy Butler? But Trent, go ahead first. Go ahead, Trent. You good?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? So, I got a question for you, but I also got something to say to one of your statements that you said, Alex. So, with Jimmy, you said like Jimmy doesn't need to average 25, which I agree. I just don't think Jimmy could even play a full season. His body's just gonna break down, personally, in my opinion. I just he never takes the regular season serious, and I think it's just more the fact that one, he's aging, and two, these injuries just start lingering a little bit more. But when you look at this offense with Terry and Tyler, we haven't seen it for a full season. But do you really trust that? They both need the ball offensively. They're like Tyler needs the ball. If he doesn't have the ball, he's useless in my opinion. And Terry, he could play a little bit more off ball, but we traded for Terry to be the scorer. We needed that next scorer. So like we still have to work out with that rotation of the starting lineup of Terry and Tyler, which I just don't think is going to work out personally. And we've seen what Tyler has done in the regular season. He struggles. He doesn't go to the free throw line enough. His ball handling is not the greatest, right? He takes a lot of he makes a lot of contested shots, but also takes a lot of crazy shots. Like Tyler's game is still like the same that we seen him, a couple years ago coming off the bench. So that's the couple of things that concern me. And then with Duncan's injury, we're hoping he's fine. We haven't heard much about it. We're hoping that he comes back and be capable of shooting high 38, 40% from the 3-point line. But you can answer that after this. But the question I have for you too is for both of y'all, Bobby. The Miami Heat have tons of shooting guards on this roster. You got Tyler, Duncan, who I think could be locks. But then you got Josh Richardson, who no one's talking about. You can put him point guard, shooting guard, whatever, right? You got Larson. I don't even know if he plays this year. Maybe he doesn't, but you still got to put him in there. And then you got Josh Christopher, who you just brought on a two-way, who was pretty impressive playing for Summer League. I'm not saying he's going to crack the rotation. No one knows. And then you got Alec Burks. So you have a lot of guards on this team. And my question is, right, and Bobby said earlier was, you just don't want to trade somebody just to trade for somebody, which I agree, right? But somebody has to get traded. There's just no way that they're going into the season with that many guards on their team and then have Drew Smith just as their backup point guard. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm fine with the roster we got. I'm one of the people that is anti-trade for a star, but it is what it is. I'm done complaining about that. Let's just roll what we got. But something has to happen with one of these shooting guards. And I don't know how true it is. I heard they try to dump Duncan's contract, but they just couldn't get it done. So what player do you think is going to crack the rotation, be the shooting guard, like coming off the bench? And, how's the offense going to operate with Tyler and Terry? We really don't know how that's going to really work. Is it we seen it a little bit, but then Terry got hurt. Like there was really in and out. So, yeah.
I'll tell you. First, I'll go with the Tyler and Terry backcourt. I do believe that Spo will probably start them, but it all comes down to how you stagger them. Because now Tyler's focus and part of his growth is more catch and release, catch and shoot, where is more spotting up at times, coming off screens, multiple screens, stagger screens, go screens, whatever the case may be. And then you kind of have the point of the offense. When I mentioned the offensive philosophy, is probably you're going to have Nico starting. So the ball handling is not per se going to be only Terry and Tyler. So you have Jimmy that can initiate offense, Jovic that can initiate offense, but what you're looking for is space out the floor. So now that opens Terry. One of the unheard of things that he does, and people don't realize that he gets to the basket with relative ease. Terry's one of the few people in the Heat that could actually go to the hoop and get contact at any given moment. Tyler is more of a finesse mid-range player, so they'll play around that. But the whole offensive philosophy is going to be based on a lot of high screen rows with Bam initiating, Jovic maybe bringing up the ball. You might even see some Jovic and Bam high pick and rolls. So it's going to be a lot of movement. I do particularly think that within 5 or 6 minutes, that's when you see either Tyler or Terry go out, and then that's when you begin staggering these lineups. So they're going to have to play together, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes a game. They're going to close together at times for the majority of the times. So I'm just interested to see when it comes to training camp how the roster breakdowns, because I was a big fan of starting Duncan. I think Duncan creates an insane amount of space for that unit, especially with Bam, and he plays very well with Terry, and he plays well with Tyler. So I have no problem starting Tyler and Duncan and bringing Terry off the bench. But that's gonna be handled in training camp, how the foreseeable, how the rotations go. In regards to what you mentioned, shooting guard depth. I do believe there's a chance they're still monitoring the Laurie Markkinen situation. That obviously that looks bleak. Now there's reports from Portland about Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simmons being available. I don't think we're gonna do any deals with Cronin anytime soon, so I'm not even looking into that. But I do believe there is a possibility that we go into the season the roster intact the way it is. I don't see now. This is one thing. I do believe Drew Smith, Isaiah Stevens will take Drew Smith two-way contract because now Isaiah Smith is as an Exhibit 10. He's going into training camp. But I do believe potential-wise, Stevens, I would take Stevens over Drew Smith at all. I know Drew Smith, in Spo's eyes, is a great point of attack defender, which in regards to, that's why you're probably going to rely more on Richardson, even Butler. You mentioned Pele Larson. He's a rotational piece. He could play right away. But this is when I was funny because with the draft, I was talking to Bobby about this. When you draft Pele Larson, now you got Jaime Ascension, you got Hero, you got Terry, and then you have Kashad Johnson replacing essentially Caleb Martin. You have Highsmith. So Highsmith is part of the rotation. But now Duncan Robinson kind of becomes expendable. So now you don't need that shooting really because Pella Larson's going to improve his shooting. You have deep shooting in your bench. Now Alec Burks is just a veteran presence. Is he going to play in crucial moments at times? I believe so. But Richardson and Burks are more insurance policies, in my opinion. Richardson out of Burks and Richardson, you might see Richardson play more in regards because of his defensive tenacity. Now Burks is an elite 3-point shooter, and he has a great catch and shoot rate. So there are moments that as you initiate your rookies and get them comfortable to gain speed in the NBA, that's why those veteran presence are there. Like a K Love, that's a locker room signing. But there's a reason they have those depth. And I know people keep talking about Thomas Bryant, and right now what really bothers me, I love Tyus Jones. And I understood the Thomas Bryant situation at the time. He might have opted in. He was going to cost us more. But then you see Tyus Jones signed for a veteran minimum, 1 year, and he signs with Phoenix, which that gives them a piece that they were missing, an essential piece in their offense. Now, I would have loved to have that opportunity there. But once again, we have a crowded shooting guard. We have a crowded backcourt. So I do believe there's going to be pieces because injuries happen. And I always tell Bobby this every time we do our shows. Injuries sometimes are your biggest luck for a coach because sometimes you have a log jam and you don't know what to do. And injuries allow people to step up, to expose themselves, to surpass expectations and define rotations at time. So I do believe there's a chance that we could go intact to the season, have depth, but suppose only going to play 8 or 9 guys, maybe 9, 10 on a given night. So some of them won't crack rotations right away. I do believe Richardson will. I do believe one of the things that people are not noticing, Jaime Jaquez is going to be a primary ball handler for that second unit. They're going to run a lot of offense through Jaime. So look out for that. That's why we always say we don't need a prototypical point guard. We don't need a PG1. We have a team that offensively, they're going to maneuver around, and you have many people that can start your offense and initiate your offense. So it's going to be, training camp is going to be very interesting. You're going to start seeing the trends right away.
Even if Duncan comes back healthy, because we don't know about his back injury. You mentioned it. He was compromised in the playoffs. He played 5 minutes one game, 10 another game. So even his, let's call it ascension from a 3-point specialist, he was able to become a better playmaker. He had like the most assists. I think he had like 3 assists per game last season off the bench, which was a career high for him. So he's become a better playmaker as well, a better off-ball player. So I could see him handling the ball a little bit, but I agree with you on the whole Jaime perspective. I think he's going to become a better 3-level scorer for us if he wants to improve and help us with Jimmy, like taking time off perhaps and letting other people ascend and score more for us. He's someone who needs to up his points from 11.9 to like 15, 16 off the bench.
Correct.
Like he needs to be our sixth man. But I have a question for you, Alex, too, or Bobby, you can jump in as well. But it was a few things you've mentioned, Alex. Initially, you were talking about Bam and how he is, of course, in his prime and he's ascending. He's obviously getting this experience with superstars in the Olympics, and he's one of the most important, crucial players in the Olympics. So do you see, two-part question, do you see him like ascending more offensively because Jimmy might take more of a backseat? Because he's been stuck at like 14 shot attempts, 19, 20 points per game for the last 3 seasons. Do you see a world where Bam does get more aggressive, takes 17, 18 shots per game, averages 23, 24 points, because he will be shooting more threes as he's extending his range, especially that above the break shot. And then in the Olympics, we're seeing he's shooting those easy corner shots. So do you think he will finally kind of be more aggressive as Jimmy is getting older? He's playing more on the perimeter, like you said, because he's having more trouble getting to the rim. So we saw Jimmy shooting more threes. So that's my first part. And then the second part is, do you see Bam actually moving to the power forward, as he's talked about it in the Olympics? He's playing next to AD. He has a rim protector. That is all contingent on KEL'EL WARE eventually, playing with him, who would be that 5. So
Correct.
do you see that happening? And if so, does that mean Jovic has to come off the bench? Like, what happens to Jovic then if KEL'EL kind of ascends as well? Do we see Bam moving to the 4?
I'll answer quick, Bobby, so you can give your take. I do. To start the season and for this season, I do see Jovic starting next to Bam because I believe people have this 4 and 5 thing. I believe they're going to be interchangeable, kind of the way Bam plays with AD, and that's what. There's not going to be a true definition or a true 5. That's the beauty of it, and you're going to see offensively. The Miami Heat are going to play more of the international style of play at times. They're going to speed up. They're going to rev it up. That's why they want to push pace this year. So I do believe with the Wear ascension, Bam will be more aggressive. In regards to the Jimmy's question, I don't want the one thing about Bam is people always question his aggressive by his numbers and if he's scoring 20, 25 points. I don't want Bam to be overly aggressive. I want Bam to be aggressive in the nature of his game and be more assertive. So I'll use that word. I don't want him to be more aggressive because Bam is already aggressive enough, but he's more assertive. He's more of a vocal leader now. He's more comfortable in his in he people respecting him and listening to him. And now what you're gonna see is a more assertive Bam, where he's confident in his shot. He has the green light to shoot from 3. So naturally, psychologically, that opens the floor for you. And when you have now the personnel like a Jovic, like a Khalil next to you, it opens up lanes for you, for Hero, for Jimmy. So it's going to be a free flow form of aggression. But I do believe that you're going to see Bam being featured more. And obviously now also defenses are going to focus more on Bam offensively. But I want to make one point clear, and I'll give it to you, Bob. It's very important that people realize this. Bam's aggressiveness and success for the Heat does not mean he's going to average 25, 26, 27 points. I don't see Bam ever going to that level because his responsibilities defensively are still immersed. That's why you have a Hero, that's why you have a Terry to handle that scoring load. But Bam will always, for Bam to be great and the Heat to be successful, Bam will be in the 21, 22 points per range, 12, 13 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. That's what you're going to see from Bam. You're going to see a more complete player and a more assertive player, in my opinion. Bobby, all yours.
Yeah, I think Alex took the words out of my mouth, but yeah, I think for this season too is you're going to see Bam playing more the 5 and the 4. I think that's to be switching up. You're asking what can get Bam to that next level where he becomes more of the focal piece in the Miami Heat offense other than Jimmy, and I think that the draft pick of KEL'EL WARE opens that to get Bam to the next level. I think that this pick will help him, and especially what's going on now in the Olympics. My thing is always more aggressive and then the freedom. And I think that pick with KEL'EL WARE gives him that. It gives him the freedom to do more, to not have to worry too much about playing to the 5, going to the 4, stretching out the floor. And then obviously he needs to be more aggressive because I'm sure you guys, as much as I, you see an open shot for Bam when he has the ball and then, he doesn't pass it off or does something else. And you're like, dude, you should have took that shot. I think this season and even the season after, we're going to see that Bam taking those type of opportunities. And I will say, in what Trent was saying earlier, which I agree with the whole, the log jam at guard and all this whatnot. The reason why the Heat could stick with what they're going in and kind of running it back with that current lineup is because exactly what he had said. Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero did not get too much of a chance to play together, so we don't really know how that's going to look like going into next season. Now, do I think this logjam at guard opens up, makes Duncan Robinson more expendable? No, I think his cap hit makes him more expendable. But I would prefer Duncan over Tyler in this Heat roster. I think Tyler is more expendable. And I think he's the only one that I could see right now that if any type of move was going to go down, it would be Tyler Hero. I just don't think it will be like for that superstar. I don't think it's going to be for a Laurie Mack or whatever, Laurie out of Utah. I think it could be for like a lateral move or whatever, maybe for a forward or something else. But and I think that's the more than likely trade that could go down.
So this team goes as far as Jimmy Butler takes them. Do you guys think that Jimmy Butler has it just left in the tank in terms of playoff Jimmy? I know that, he's probably going to play around 65 games. I don't need Jimmy to play 82. I just need him to play a competitive 65. So whatever he plays, can he just try in those games? He can't have 8 shots. He can't just be passing the ball around, or it looks like he doesn't want to be there, because we need him. I know that, we have Terry and all these other guys, but we go as far as Jimmy Butler takes us. So do you guys think that we should extend him? Should we trade him? Do you guys think that he has another miracle run in him? Where do you guys stand with Jimmy Butler? He is an aging super, he is aging and whatnot. So where do you guys stand with him, as a whole?
I will say I am perfectly fine waiting it out until the end of this season to see how it goes. I believe in Jimmy, and I believe in this team when it comes playoff time. Just get us to the playoffs. A couple seasons ago, before we made that run to go to Denver, I remember before that season, the Heat were in the play-in. Alex and I, we did our predictions, and which is very. It was like it switched. Alex and I are, when it comes to our teams, I'm more of the realist, or you want to say like the Downer, Debbie Downer, where I'm like, dude, this is how I could see it going down. This is how we're going to fall apart. And Alex is more of the homer, where he'll be like, no, bro, watch. All of a sudden, this guy from the G Leagues would come out. He's going to be Michael Jordan, 2 point. It's like, dude, you're full of shit. That's how it is with us. But that season, I was like, he was the other way. He's like, no, man, we're going to get bounced, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Alex, I feel this team is going to be better in the playoffs. I watched the playoff Heat team, and they ended up making that run. That's how I feel about this Heat team. Just get us to the playoffs. And I'm with you. I don't need Jamie for 80-plus games. Get him for that 60-plus games. Just be healthy for the playoffs. And I think Jimmy does have one more run in him. But am I going to give him – would I be comfortable with the Heat giving him a max deal or anything like that right now? Absolutely not. I think not doing that and waiting until the end of the season to either just let Jimmy maybe test the market or let you test the market, because that might give you the freedom to make a move to better this team down the line.
But I just don't want to lose him for nothing. That's my thing.
I understand.
I don't want him to walk out the door and then we could have traded him. Because if Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-round picks,
we could get 3 first-round picks. I'm with you on that. Now, if the Heat are in a competitive spot, right, or we feel good about them, and we're like, okay, they're not the 1 seed, but they're at the 5th seed, whatever, and they look like they can make a run, you keep them and you risk that because you need him for the playoffs. He's your best shot, right? But if the Heat are freaking skidding and they're not playing, then at the halfway point before the trade deadline, I'm all for, let's go ahead and move him before we lose him for nothing. Gain some draft capital. Get the draft capital you don't have, because every time – this is the thing. Every time a big name shows up, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, whomever, Kyrie, KD, it's always the Heat. And fans get caught up in that. Here's the problem. We know how good our players are. We know what the assets we have. The problem is teams don't care about those assets. They care about the draft capital, and the Heat don't have that. They traded more of the draft capital for Terry Rozier, who we're already talking about moving again. We're talking about trading him out. So, to me, yes, if the Heat are crap in the bed at the halfway point of the season and we know, hey, man, there's no shot at the playoffs, then yes, that's the time where you say, you know what, Jimmy, thank you. You're a legend. We appreciate what you've done. You did more with less, but we got to get that draft capital back. And that's when I think I'm with you. You move them before the season, the end of the season.
And look, I'll add to this. The Miami Heat are in a driver's seat, but there is a sort of a gentleman's agreement between Jimmy and the Heat, and through his agent, Bernie Lee. They've gotten to the point where they know Jimmy wants to be here, and we want Jimmy here. So I am perfectly fine. And when the season started, I mentioned that this was the perfect scenario. A lot of people were freaking out and just were going to give Jimmy an extension just to give an extension. The first time he came to ask for an extension, the Miami Heat gave it to him. There was no argument. So there is a relationship there. And now Jimmy is a personality. Jimmy has a swagger to him that now, honestly, this is perfect for him. He's going to be featured on Stars, the Netflix series about back with LeBron and a bunch of other and Ant-Man. So this is the perfect scenario for him where he's an entertainment. He's an entertainer. Now, I do believe the what people are not seeing is this is Jimmy in a contract year. So this is Jimmy that is going to benefit the Heat, and this is Jimmy that is looking to benefit himself. Also, eventually, do I think that we can come to an agreement in the offseason? Yeah, I do believe that we can come to a 2-year extension depending on how we do. I do not believe he's going to be traded in season. I do not unless he requests. The only way Jimmy is traded is if he requests to be traded, and then we'll try to grant that. Even next offseason, if he wants to move, we have his bird rights. We can sign and trade him. There's not going to be a lot of teams with cap space next year that are contenders. So a trade is the only scenario really where Jimmy can leave and get his max pay. But I see Jimmy playing 2, 3 more years, maybe even retiring with us. And this falls into play with the 2026-27 free agency class. Duncan Robinson's contract's off the book. Terry's contract's off the books. So if Miami sets their sights on this window, they can sign Jimmy for 2 years, and then you have a bunch of money coming off the books in a strong free agent class with your youth and Pelle Larson, still Tyler under contract, so and Jaime under contract. There's a lot of options here, but I do believe Jimmy's up for the challenge. And if we can get a healthy Jimmy, like I said, he's not going to be your feature scorer. Jimmy's role this year should be more of leadership. He can get you up 10, 20, 12 points in the fourth quarter if you need it. Absolutely. He can still do that. But you're going to see a more perimeter oriented Jimmy, a better shooter. So you're going to see Jimmy shooting close to what he did last year. 40% from three, 50+% from the field, 90% from the free throw line. So you're going to see a well-rounded Jimmy. And you might see a dip in points. You might see a rise in assist and rebounding because he's going to be featured more defensively. So is in his benefit, is in our benefit. We shelf the talks. We'll talk again in the offseason. And if he does want to leave, we'll do a sign and trade, get something in return for him. But I do believe we're in for a special season where this might be the most successful season in season for Jimmy in a regular season for the Heat. And he's been pretty consistent across the board. Last year's his numbers dipped, but his percentages went up. So he wasn't as healthy as he was last year. So the goal should be 70, 72 games, honestly, this year. He can miss 10 games. That's maintenance. But we do need him. The games that he does play, he needs to be all in because that's the only way this team is going to succeed.
So my this will be my last thing I'll say, and I've been talking to the boys about this, and y'all might call me crazy. It is what it is. I still think this team is an 8th seed. I don't you can say all those options and whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, the last few years, all these players are always injured. So the pattern right now is injuries. That's what it is. So until they prove me wrong and actually do something, I'm kind of staying on the side of we at 8th seed because and I love my team, but there's so many times where you can get heartbroken, and then realism, I can't even say the damn word, kind of hits. But I will say though, this is the question. I got them as an 8th seed. I got them being a playing team, and I'm glad you brought up Orlando because I've been preaching about Orlando for this offseason. You could say they may take a step back. Who knows, right? Possibly. I still think they're going to have more wins than Miami. I still think Indiana's going to have more wins than Miami. And I think Philly in the regular season and New York and Boston. So I think those teams are going to stay there. My thing is, I think we're better than Cleveland. 100% better than Cleveland. Can we beat Boston right now? Because I don't think we can. They're too good.
Boston
Celtics, yes. You got Philly. Philly's just I think we could beat Philly because Paul George, that dude is a fraud. Joel can never stay healthy, and Maxi's a dog, just straight up like that, right? And in New York, they're full of dogs. Don't get me wrong. I think they have better role players than us, but they're how are they gonna make that work with McHale and OG? So it's the main team to me is Boston. Can we beat them? Because I want to win a championship in the Jimmy Butler era. I don't care about these other teams. Can we beat this Boston team? Because Boston, like you said, They got 6 to 7 people back on contract for a long
Correct.
time. It's not just like, oh, it's for 1 year. No, they're locked up. Even Sam Hauser's locked up. So, like, can we compete with Boston? Philly, Knicks, cool. We can compete. Boston, can we really compete? Because I know us Heat fans, we love talking crap. They won a championship. You could say
Absolutely.
whatever way they won it. You could say
They earned
fraudulent.
it. They earned it.
They won.
Yeah,
They were the
they
best
earned it.
team in
That's
the
fine.
Eastern Conference all year. They won it. Can we beat this team? And this is a question for Alex and Bobby.
If healthy, I give us a competitive chance to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series if we're fully healthy. And like the key, I'm telling you, the key in that series, Porzingis for them, because at the end of the day, now we address something that we did not have last year, and that is when Ware comes in. That is when the ascension of Jovic and Bam. Now you have athletic and size. Before we were athletic, but we were small. And now we can play with a Porzingis. We can play with our Horfords. We can play with the Hausers. We have size and athleticism, and we're going to be much quicker. We're going to be much more athletic on the wings. So I do believe we're not there. We're not there on paper because those are the world champions. But if healthy, I give us a shot in a 7-game series against any team in the NBA. When it comes to playoff time, across the board.
Yeah, I will say first off, Trent, a lot of the stuff you said tonight, I agree with you, and despite how you feel about the Dolphins quarterback, I think you and I have seen a lot of stuff eye to eye, and I think we'll agree eventually down the line on that. But I agree with you. I'm not going to sit here and pretend we're going to be the fifth, fourth, third seed after. It's like I always compare it to the Eddie Murphy comedy stand-up. What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? And the Heat have shown that they can't be healthy throughout the season, and they've been in the playoff twice. So until they get past that point, I can't say they'll get to that point. But I will say this: it could be Boston, Philly. I don't care. Philly, I'm not worried about. Orlando. That team's young and coming up. I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They got young guns. They got a good bench, strong bench, good starters. And they're probably going to be a dangerous team in a 7-game series. But I'm with Alex in regards of I don't care if it's Boston or anything. I think the Heat have a shot. You just get us in the playoffs. You get us in a 7-game series. I think the Heat have a shot to take on any team, even Boston. That's how I feel.
So, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can the people find you on YouTube, and when do you guys, regularly do your shows?
Alex,
I'll let you do, Bobby. Come on, you're the father of the network, man. This is
I
the
did
man
it at the
right
beginning,
here.
man.
Oh, come on. You can
All right.
find us at Finstock Sports Network, and typically, you're going to see Bobby in almost every show. We're with the East 10th Street Boys. Sometimes we do our shows on Wednesdays nights. For the most part, now we're doing Sunday mornings. And East 10th Street Boys, that's something that features us. It's life, sports, and it's everything that we used to do since we were 5, 6, 7 years old. Now we get a chance to do it with an audience, talking about what we love with the people that we love.
Yeah, and again, FTSN on YouTube. You can also find me at Bobby Finstock on Twitter. You can see Alex at AJ_Atia, and of course at
Thank you.
Finstock Network on Twitter. But Finstock Sports Network on YouTube. Again, guys, I mean, we talk everything from Miami Heat, Dolphins, NFL, NBA, professional wrestling, hockey. I mean, fantasy football. We got it all, and we're continuing to grow. So for those that watch or participate in any of those things, please hop on over, hit that subscribe button. And I mean, even if you want to come on and talk sports with us, I'm happy to have you all on.
Guys, so make sure that you go right over to their channel, hit that subscribe button, and Trent, to answer your question off camera, Tua is better than Dak Prescott.
No, he's not. And I'm a Niner fan. I hate the Cowboys more than anybody in this channel right now or this video. I disagree with that, Martel. All right, thanks again, guys.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having us.